Hi, my name is Whitney Winn from the Office of Research, and I'm going to walk you guys through how to use a funding database. It's called COS. It's just one of the many options you have if you want to search for fellowships, research grants, scholarships, any sort of funding opportunity. So to get started, direct your browser to www.cos.com. That's going to take you to the main page of the database. COS is a funding database. It's provided by ProQuest, which is a company that provides a lot of electronic databases for library products. We pay for it here at UCSB. Anyone on campus is allowed to use it as long as you're logged in from a campus computer, or if you're at home and you're using the VPN. And then once you create a COS account and you get associated with our campus subscription, you'll actually be able to log in from anywhere as long as you use the username and password that you created here today. So like I said, you're going to need to create a username and password if you want to be able to access it from off campus, or if you want to be able to save searches or get email alerts based off your searches, which is one of the more powerful things that this database provides. You're welcome to just search it without logging in or without creating an account, but just keep in mind that you won't be able to save any of your data or access it again later. So if you want to register, click here, New User, Register Free, up in the upper left corner. It'll take you to this page. Click Join again. It'll open up this Create Your Account. It's pretty straightforward. Type in your email address, first and last name. It's going to pre-populate some of these fields here already, so it already knows you're associated with UCSB, so you don't need to change that. You're welcome to use any email address. Actually, it doesn't have to be your UCSB.edu account. As long as you're signing up from on campus, it'll know if you're with UCSB. It's also going to have you select a school, so whatever best applies to you. And once you select a school, so let me select College of Letters and Science. Here, and then it should pre-populate the departments. So let's say I'm in communication, and I'll select that. Again, whatever best applies to you and your status here. It's also going to have you select title. There's a lot of different options here. You can select graduate student if that best applies to you. There's lots of other options. You can also type something in here. All this information is really for our internal records, and it doesn't really have anything to do with your search results or anything like that. And then it'll have you create a username and password, just something you'll remember. It's pretty easy to retrieve that information if you ever forget it. All this other information down here is totally optional. You don't need to fill it in. After you fill all that out, create your account, and you should be good to go. So let me just log in so I can show you what it'll look like once you've logged in. So if you just create an account, or anytime you log in, it'll take you directly to what they call your workbench. And this is where you can get sort of a snapshot of everything you've done with this database in terms of saving your funding searches and creating email alerts. If you've just created a brand new account, this should look pretty empty. You won't have any saved searches here. You won't have any saved records. Along here on the side is a thing called Manage Your Profile. You can pretty much ignore this. It's sort of just an optional feature if you want to use it to create a CV. And then there's a couple other options on the side here. So if you ever want to change your username and password, that's there. And then you'll have contact information for me since I'm the contact here on campus. It'll send an email directly to me, and then there are a few other help options. But what we want to do is get started right away doing a search. So the easiest way to do that is look at these tabs up in the upper right hand corner. You'll always see this on any page, and so we're going to go to Search COS Funding Opportunities here. So if you click on that, it'll take you here to the main search page. This is just a sort of basic straight search, and it's going to search anything you type here. It'll search all the fields that are in the records in the database, and it's actually not super useful, and I usually just ignore this basic search. So you'll see here right to the right of the search field is the advanced search in the search wizard. Today I'm going to walk you through the advanced search. It's a good way just to jump right in there and get started finding the funding that really is targeted to you and your particular interests. So if you click on that advanced search, you'll come here to this advanced search screen. If you've used any sort of electronic databases before, these kind of things will look really familiar to you, but I'm going to walk you through the fields today and which ones are going to be most useful and give you the most targeted, specific results. So these fields here, I'm actually going to suggest ignoring them for now. These are sort of, again, the open text fields that'll search all of the record fields. And it can be useful, but not for a really basic search like I'm going to show you. So then you'll see under that it says more search fields. This is really what's going to target these results down for you, and I'm going to quickly go through what all of these are. The first one you'll see is deadline. I usually don't suggest for your first search searching by deadline because it's really going to narrow down some things that might apply to you eventually, but if you're ever looking for something, if you need funding for the fall, obviously you're going to want something with a deadline that's coming up fairly soon just because of the way funding cycles work. So if you're looking for something, you can search for something within the next 90 days, within the next 30 days, anything like that. Pretty self-explanatory, but again, we're not going to play with that one right now. So if I click on that down here again, that should make it disappear from our search. The next field, again, we're not really going to use right now, but I'm just going to tell you what it is. It's called the Limited Submission Other Internal Coordination. And so for all of these funding opportunities you're going to see in here, occasionally there's ones that will say only one person from UCSB can apply, or each department can only nominate one grad student for this particular award. That's not totally common, but you might see it. So that's something to keep in mind when you're looking at the results. If you see something with limited submission, it'll explain what the limitation is and whether or not you need to really pay attention to it. So click on that again, it should disappear. Next one is amount. Again, for a sort of basic getting started search, probably don't want to narrow it down by amount, but you can always, if you need a lot of money for this particular research project or something like that, you can use that to narrow down your results. I will click on the title to make that one disappear. And the first one that's going to be really powerful for us is what's called the keywords. So for every record that they put into the database, they're going to tag it with one or more subject keywords. So if you click on Browse, it'll pop up their keyword hierarchy, and you can sort of see it's grouped by general disciplines that you'd see at any sort of college or university. And if you click on the little plus signs next to the folders, you can start browsing through this hierarchy. So let me look through area studies. I'll open that up, and you'll see how it's then grouped by where in the world you're studying, regions of the U.S., all these different things. So let's say, for example, I'm doing research on Asia. You want to go sort of broad. So if you start narrowing it down to, the Arabian Peninsula, that's going to get you things that are only for the Arabian Peninsula, and start eliminating things that are on a more broad scope. So for now, let's just say I'm going to do Asia. So for any of these keywords you want to use, you click on the keyword, and then you'll see under this window that it starts adding it to your search. You can click as many as you want, but for example's sake, we'll just kind of stay broad. So you can close out this window, and so you'll see that here. And I'm going to leave this thing called Explode checked, and so what that's going to do is it's going to search for the keyword Asia, but it's also going to search for all those keywords that we saw that fit under Asia. So it'll search all of those specific ones. You will still get some results that don't apply specifically to you, but for this search, we're going to sort of start big and then narrow it down afterwards if there's too many results to go through. The next one is activity location, and this one is really important. COS, the database, it is worldwide, so you're going to get a lot of results that really don't apply to you as someone studying in the United States. There might be funding opportunities for people in England or in Australia or anywhere else around the world, so we really want to narrow it down so that you're looking at things that really apply to you. So if I'm doing my research here on campus, I would select California. That's as narrow as we can go, but it's also gonna narrow it down correctly for us. If, for example, you were going somewhere else to do research in the field, you could select wherever that is from this activity location. So if I was studying something to do with Asia and I was actually going to go to, say, China to do my research, I might want to choose China from the activity location to narrow it down that way. And then the other thing, by default, it's going to include what they call the sub-entities and the super-entities. So for the purposes of California, that's going to include research that can be done in California, in the United States, in North America, and anywhere in the world. So that kind of, most funding opportunities are really just going to be United States based, but there are some that are specific to California. So it'll cover all of those. The next one that's really important is requirements, and this is where you can put your status at the university. Obviously, if you're a graduate student, that's what you can select. If you, were a postdoc or undergrad or anything like that, they have all those options here. So for these purposes, I'll select that I'm a graduate student. And you can leave all the other ones blank. There are a few special categories like minority or women, but again, let's start broad and then we can narrow it down a little bit later if those categories apply to you. The next one is citizenship or residency. This one can get a little tricky for graduate students because there are a lot of international students. But let's choose United States just for the example. Really, even though this is an international database, it's pretty much targeted to the United States, so a lot of the opportunities are going to be for people who are studying in the United States. So let's choose that for examples purposes. The next category is called funding type, and this is where you can narrow it down. If you were really only looking for fellowships, that's here. It's this category called training or scholarship or fellowship. If you were looking for something to actually fund your research, that's an option. There's a few other things if you're at a later stage in your graduate student career. Postdoctoral awards might be something, meeting, conference, or seminar support. So there's a lot of different options through here. So you can choose whatever best applies to you. If you want to choose multiple funding types, you can, if you're on a Mac, hold down Command. If you're on a PC, hold down Control. And you should be able to choose several different options. So for this example, let me choose fellowship or dissertation or thesis, and we'll see what we get. And then the last search field that you can use is sponsor type. For the most part, you don't really want to narrow it down here unless you know for sure you're really only going after private foundation funding or federal funding. But you can usually just leave this blank so that you're covering all the different opportunities you might get. The other option down here at the bottom is to exclude fields. And depending on what exactly you're looking for, sometimes it's better to exclude certain things than it is to try to be all-inclusive. So, for example, again, looking at sponsor type, if I knew that I didn't really want anything from the federal government, I knew there wasn't going to be anything useful there, I can just exclude that from my search entirely instead of going through and selecting everything except that. So it's just another option to sort of narrow down your results. So if you've gone through all the search fields and you're pretty confident about the options you've selected and you want to see what the results look like, just hit search down at the bottom. And it should pop up your search results. So for the search I did, you can see up here in the upper right corner the number you got. So I only got 3. It's a pretty specific sort of search. And they're by default ranked by relevance, just based on the criteria you selected. It somehow determines how relevant these results are for you. But you can also sort by all of the other fields. So not much to really sort through here, but if you click on any of these, it should sort them again by that column. It gives you a little brief information here on the results page, but if you click on any of these little icons in the corner, it'll give you more information without taking you to the full record yet. So if you had a lot of results to go through, you could kind of quickly look at the abstracts for these to see if they apply for you. And then also it gives you a deadline, if it's specified, if there's an amount. Again, if there's a little icon here, it should give you a little bit more information about the stipulations that come with the funding. Over here on the right, you'll see a few other ways to narrow down your results. So it kind of breaks it down. So of my 3 results, 2 were from other nonprofits. 1 was from an academic institution, 2 are for dissertation or thesis, 1 is a fellowship. 3 are for grad students. 1 of them is also for PhD, people who have their PhD already. And then it shows you what some of the keywords are. So let me click on this Pacific Rim mini grants. This is actually really applicable to us here at UCSB since it's a UC grant. So this database does have a lot of the system-wide grants in here, which can be really good because as a student in a UC, you're pretty competitive for these since that's the only people they're for. And the Pacific Rim grants are really great for people doing research in Asia or anywhere else on the Pacific Rim. So I'll just kind of show you what a funding record looks like. It gives you all the basic information like the title, the sponsor type. Really important is the URL of the actual sponsoring agency. So that's always, if it's something that you really think you're going to apply for, always go to the actual page to get the most up-to-date information and all the correct forms. You can also look at some of the other things like how much money it is, and if there's any other terms. Here, activity location is California. Citizenship is unrestricted, so that's included even though we said U.S. citizenship. A few other things like here is other internal coordination, so this is just something to make sure you look at. So I know for this particular grant, each UC campus has its own internal deadline, so those are things to look out for. And then it gives you an abstract of what the funding agency is looking for, so you can see if it fits you and your research. And then a few other bits of information like contact information, what the keywords were that they used for this search, and all of that. So if this particular funding record looked interesting to me and I wanted to take note of it and save it for later, you'll see up here it's called Track This Record on My Workbench. If you click on that, it'll say, would you like to receive an email when new information is available? So if you'd like to keep an eye on this, you want to know when it's updated, when there's a new deadline, all of that, just click yes, it'll send you an email. That's pretty useful. And then you can tag it. So for me, I'll just tag it as a fellowship. Again, this is just for your purposes, so however you want to remember this record. So click Track This Record. Sometimes it takes a second, and it should let you know it's been saved. And if you just hit the back button, you should go back to your results. And let's say, for example, this particular search was really good and I want to keep it. I want to save this search. You'll see up here in this toolbar it says Save Search. If you click on that, similar to what we just saw, save a name for your search. I'll say Asia Research. Again, it's yours. You can name it whatever you want. Step 2, would you like to receive email? Yes. Step 3, just ignore step 3. It's not really relevant to our COS database here on campus. So save the search. Give you a little confirmation. You can close it. And let me take you to your workbench. So you can always get back to that main workbench by clicking here up at the top. It'll take you back. And so under your Save Funding Searches, you should have a search now if you've saved one. So right here I see my Asia Research search. So from your workbench, I can go run the search again at any time without having to go through and add all those search fields again. It'll save it all for me. I can go in and edit it. If I realize, oh, I really didn't want Asia as my keyword, I wanted something else, go back in, edit it, run the search again, and you can save it as something else. Want to delete that search, no longer looking for fellowship opportunities, you don't need it, delete it, share it. This lets you email it to someone else. It can be useful if you're doing collaborative work, or if you need to send it maybe to your advisor or something, just to have them take a look at it. It's something you can do. Once you've had an account for a while, you'll start seeing a number of new results. So each week, what COS does is it just kind of runs your searches again in the background, and if there's any new results, it'll actually email them straight to you. So this is where it kind of keeps track of how many new ones you had each week. And then here there's a little checkbox just to remind you that you're getting a weekly email about that. And then down here at the bottom, you should see a few options. There's archives, so you can always go see the previous week's results that it had gotten. So that's a good option if you've had an account for a while and you don't really remember some of the results it's given you. It's taking a while. Let's press stop. Another thing you might want to look at is the options for your funding alerts. So you're just going to see, okay, here's the email address I signed up with. I prefer to get it by HTML so the email looks a little bit snazzier. You want to choose amount and deadline so those display in the email. And then the rest of the information is not super relevant. So you can just kind of leave that untouched. If you make any changes, click Save these changes. And that's a good way to edit your options. So go back to the workbench. So that's mostly it about saved funding searches. Again, if you do that, it sends you an email each week. It always comes on Sundays. If you have, a whole bunch of saved searches like I do, it all comes as one single email that you can browse through, and it's pretty easy to look at. It's a good option. You kind of do all this work ahead of time and then don't really have to put much work into it on a regular basis, but it is checking on things for you in the background. And the other thing down here on the workbench is your tracked funding records. So that was that one particular record that I had saved. I think that'll be down here at the bottom. Yeah, so there's my Pacific Rim mini grants. It's just there. Just gives you a little reminder of what you saved, just the title and sponsor, when the next deadline is, if they know. So that's a good way to track those particular ones. And if I go back to this search, anytime you're on a search results page and you realize, I'm not really getting many hits and it's not really what I was expecting, you can always click up here on Refine Your Query. So you can go back in and edit that search again. Perhaps there just aren't any funding opportunities for your very specific field of study and you might want to go with a broader keyword. You can always go back in here and choose a new one. It's always a good idea to run a couple different ones just to see at first the kind of results you're getting and see if you can tighten that search up and really start getting ones that apply to you. But again, don't be discouraged. There's not always something that fits your particular needs exactly. So it's always a good idea to come back in and check a couple different options. So I think that's it. If you ever have any questions about COS, again, my name is Whitney Winn. I work in the Office of Research. You can send me an email. It's winn@research.ucsb.edu. I'm always pretty good about responding to those, and definitely any questions about how to set up an account, how to do a search, anything like that, I can usually help you out. All right, thanks for listening.